In the previous classes, we have studied about brain, and in today's class, we will study about spinal cord. We have seen that central nervous system has brain and spinal cord, and we have studied what are the structures that are present in the brain, what are the functions of those structures. Now we will see the structure of spinal cord. Spinal cord, it is an elongated cylindrical tube like structure which will be approximately 45 centimeters in length, and this originates from the medulla oblongata and it passes through the foramen magnum of the cranium and it passes downwards through the vertebral canal which is formed by the all these individual vertebrae. The hollow space which is present in the vertebrae, it is called as vertebral canal, and this vertebral canal is the house for the spinal cord. And similar to that of brain, spinal cord also is covered by all these meninges, and this extends till the first lumbar vertebrae, after which it continues as phylum terminale, and gradually all these membranes will fuse with the periosteum of sacral vertebrae. In this diagram, you can see that spinal cord which originates from the medulla oblongata, it passes through the vertebral canal in the vertebral column. And in the other diagram, you can also see what are the various meninges which cover this spinal cord. It also has dura mater, it consists of subdural space, it consists of arachnoid matter, subarachnoid space, and it consists of pia mater. And this is once again the cerebrospinal fluid which is secreted from the ventricles which enters into this subarachnoid space. Also it circulates in this subarachnoid space of spinal cord. So we have seen that it grows up to 45 centimeters in length in adults, and the thickness will be approximately of a little finger, and it starts from the atlas, that is the first cervical vertebrae which we have studied in the skeletal muscle system. That first cervical vertebrae, it is called as atlas, and the second cervical vertebrae, it is called as the axis. And from there, this forms the neural link between all the nerves that are supplied to other parts of the body, or all the nerves which bring impulses from different parts of the body are carried to the spinal cord or carried from the spinal cord, and this establishes as a neural link between different parts of the body and the brain. Generally, apart from this general actions, spinal cord is also necessary for spinal reflexes. We have seen spinal cord, it acts as a neural link between the other organs of the body and the brain, whereas some reflex actions or some actions which are produced by the spinal cord are called as reflex actions, and this type of reflex actions, it does not involve brain, hence these are called as reflex actions. We will study them in detail in the next classes. Generally, the spinal cord, when it is transversely cut as shown in the diagram, it can be divided into different regions. They are anterior regions, posterior regions, and lateral regions. Anterior, posterior, and lateral regions are the different regions which we can identify in the spinal cord. And this anterior region, it consists of a shallow median fissure or a depression, you can find in the diagram, whereas in the posterior region, it consists of a septum. Anterior region consists of a depression which is called as anterior median fissure, whereas posterior region consists of a septum which is called as posterior median septum. And another difference of spinal cord when compared to that of brain is spinal cord has the gray matter in the middle, whereas it has the white matter in the periphery. We have seen in the brain the periphery consists of gray matter, whereas in the middle it consists of white matter. Whereas in the spinal cord, in the middle it consists of gray matter and in the periphery it consists of white matter. Generally, this cell bodies form the gray matter. They form the gray matter either in the spinal cord or they form the gray matter either in the brain. And in this spinal cord, once again we find the cell bodies in the gray matter and various supporting tissues such as neuroglia near the cell bodies. Now we will see how the gray matter and white matter can be differentiated in the spinal cord. The gray matter, it appears as a H-shaped structure, or it is not a structure. The gray matter appears in H shape, and this H shape can be once again differentiated into two anterior columns and two posterior columns. And the nerve cell bodies for sensory neurons, they receive impulses from the peripheral body and these lie in the posterior columns. We have seen that there are two anterior columns and two posterior columns, and gray matter is full of cell bodies of sensory neurons. Sensory neurons in the sense which carry impulses from various organs of peripheral regions to the spinal cord. So here the impulse will be generated from the organs, from the skin or from the muscles or from internal organs. From those regions the impulse will be carried to the spinal cord, because the sensations from these regions will be carried to the spinal cord, and hence these are called as sensory neurons. And this sensory neurons have their cell bodies in the posterior columns, whereas motor neurons have their cell bodies in the anterior columns. So generally we have seen that the motor activity, it is controlled by two neurons. One is upper motor neuron and the other is lower motor neuron. Upper motor neuron, it arises from the motor area in the brain and it passes through the brain stem, where in the medulla oblongata it undergoes crossing over and it moves downwards into the spinal cord. And from the spinal cord the lower motor neuron arises and it is supplied to various skeletal muscles. And this cell bodies of lower motor neuron, they lie in the anterior column. And there are some other types of neurons which are called as connector neurons. Connector neurons are also called as interneurons. Generally we have seen that the sensory information which is carried by sensory neurons will once again be conveyed to the brain, whereas the motor impulse which is conveyed from the brain to the spinal cord and from there to the organ, it occurs through the lower motor neuron. But the sensory information which is collected by sensory neurons and which are linked directly with the motor neurons form an reflex arc, and this connection, direct connection between the sensory and motor neurons, it is made by this connector neurons or interneurons. Now we have seen that there are anterior columns and posterior columns, and posterior columns have cell bodies of sensory impulses from various peripheral regions, and the white matter that is present in this are nothing but they are the nerve fibers of these cell bodies that transmit impulse to the brain, from there to the brain, whereas anterior columns have cell bodies of lower motor neuron, and this lower motor neuron cell bodies are stimulated by the impulse from the upper motor neuron, or in some cases by the connector neurons. And the posterior column, once it leaves outside the spinal cord, immediately it forms a ganglia where it also consists of cell bodies of those sensory nerves. So we have seen the gray matter. Now we will see white matter. So in this diagram, once again you can see the H-shaped gray matter, and surrounding this H-shaped gray matter is the white matter. And this white matter is once again arranged in three different columns. They are anterior, posterior and lateral. So anterior white matter, posterior white matter and lateral white matter. And these tracts are nothing but the axons which form the white matter, are formed by these sensory nerve fibers that are ascending to the brain, means which move up to the brain from the spinal cord, and it also consists of motor nerve fibers that are coming from the brain to this region of spinal cord, and also those nerve fibers of connector neurons. All together they form the white matter. And these tracts of white matter or axons, they are named according to their point of origin and point of destination. Example, spinothalamic tract, in the sense that nerve tract or nerve bundle is between the spinal cord and the thalamus. Whereas corticospinal tract, it means this nerve tract is from the cortex to the spinal cord. In this way, based upon the source and based upon or origin and based upon the destination, this nerve extents, they are classified as different spinothalamic or corticospinal tracts. Now let's see what are the sensory nerve tracts and what are the motor nerve tracts. So sensory nerve tracts are also called as afferent nerves. So we have initially discussed that sensory nerves means they are called as afferent nerves because they are carrying impulses away from the organ. And these are also called as ascending neurons because sensory information from different regions of the body will ascend towards the brain. Hence these are called as ascending neurons. Whereas motor neurons from the brain, they come from the brain to the spinal cord and to the organs. Hence they are also called as descending neurons. And they are also called as efferent nerves because these nerves are entering into that organ here. And sensory information, generally it comes from two different sources, mainly the skin. Sensory receptors that are present in the skin are nothing but the nerve endings of sensory nerves which are stimulated by pain, heat, touch, pressure and temperature or cold. And this sensory information is carried by the sensory nerves from the skin to the spinal cord. And another group of sensory impulses arise from the receptors which are present in the tendons, muscles and joints. So the receptors present in these regions are proprioceptors, and with the impulses from the eyes and from the ears and the sensory information from these proprioceptors, they are essential for maintaining the balance and posture. Because if I want to know where I am standing, I should get information from the eyes, information from the ears and information from my various joints, so that by combining all these things I can know how I am standing, what is my, how I can balance and how can I maintain my posture. And apart from this, the sensory information from internal organs in the sense those organs which are under involuntary control. So those sensory information also is carried from different internal organs into the spinal cord. So sensory nerve tracts, they are necessary for conveying the impulses from different regions of the body, from the skin, from the muscles, tendons, joints and internal organs. All these things they bring to the spinal cord, and from the spinal cord they are carried to the brain. Now we will see about this motor nerve tracts. Motor nerve tracts or motor nerves are also called as efferent nerves. I told you to remember efferent, E, and entering, because these nerves, they enter from the spinal cord into the organ. Hence these are called as efferent nerves, and since they descend from the brain to the spinal cord and from the spinal cord to various organs, these are also called as descending neurons. And generally the motor neurons are essential for contraction of skeletal and smooth muscles and also secretion of glands. So we have seen that skeletal muscle contraction is under voluntary control, and for any organ to function, an impulse that is carried from the brain or from the spinal cord to that particular organ, it is called as an motor impulse. Sensory means coming inwards, motor means going outwards. Generally the voluntary muscle movement or movement of skeletal muscle, it involves two neurons. So one is upper motor neuron and the other is lower motor neuron. And generally we have seen in the various functional areas of brain that brain consists of central sulcus, and just before the central sulcus there is an primary motor area which is essential for controlling this functions of skeletal muscle contraction. And apart from this impulse from primary motor area, the information from midbrain, medulla oblongata and cerebellum, midbrain, medulla oblongata and cerebellum also are carried or conveyed to the spinal cord, and from there to the various muscles and joints. So this enables us to walk or to maintain our posture. And we have seen that there are two different neurons which are involved in transmission of impulse to this voluntary muscles or skeletal muscles. Upper motor neuron has its cell body in the cerebrum in the primary motor area, and from there the axon passes through the internal capsule. So internal capsule is a part of projection tract and which forms the pyramidal tract. You should remember those things because it passes through this internal capsule, and from there through the medulla where it undergoes decussation or crossing over, and from there to they form this corticospinal tracts, and at that particular region of the spinal cord they end, and from that region another neuron will form. That neuron is lower motor neuron, which has the cell body in that anterior part of gray matter of spinal cord, and the axon once again comes out and it is supplied to that particular skeletal muscle. In the motor neuron, we have seen that there are two neurons involved in the conveying of motor impulses, the upper motor neuron and the lower motor neuron. Whereas in the case of conveying sensory impulses, there might be more than two neurons, and this depends upon the region from which these sensory neurons arise, that is the pain, touch and temperature. These three sensory impulses, they involve two neurons, they involve three neurons, whereas from the touch and proprioceptors some involve three neurons, and from proprioceptors it involves two neurons also. Let's see them in detail. So here in the three neuron system, the sensory nerve, it emerges from the sensory organ, and from there sensory organ in the sense a region where the sensory information is initiated, and from there it is conveyed to the spinal cord, and from the spinal cord to the medulla or thalamus, and from the thalamus to the parietal lobe. So this is an three neuron system. So one neuron from the sensory area of the skin to the spinal cord, another neuron from the spinal cord to the thalamus, and another neuron from the thalamus to the parietal lobe. This is a three neuron system which is involved in carrying the sensory impulses, whereas the two neuron system which is involved in carrying the sensory impulses For example, proprioceptors, those receptors which are present in the joints and skeletal muscles. There the two neuron system is, one neuron arises from that joint to the spinal cord, another neuron from the spinal cord to the brain. So in this way, the sensory information, it is processed by either a 3 neuron system or a 2 neuron system, whereas motor neurons or motor impulses, they are transmitted by a 2 neuron system, which is upper motor neuron and a lower motor neuron. That is regarding this voluntary muscle movement and sensory information. Whereas let us see what happens in the case of involuntary muscle movement. So involuntary muscle movement, in the sense, our stomach will contract and relax, intestines will contract and relax, blood vessels will contract and relax. In this way, all these organs which are not under our voluntary control, they are called as, they are supplied with smooth muscles. Whereas all those things which can be controlled by us, they are supplied with skeletal muscles. And here the smooth muscles are necessary for involuntary contractions and relaxations. And in this case, let us see how this information is transmitted from the brain to this organs which are under involuntary control. So here the upper motor neurons have the cell bodies either in the brain stem or in the cerebellum, whereas in the case which we have seen previously, voluntary muscle movement, the cell bodies are there in the primary motor area of the cerebrum, whereas here the cell bodies are present in the brain stem and the cerebellum. And examples of once again, the lower motor neuron is formed by the autonomic nerves. So here, there we have seen the cell bodies arise in the brainstem and cerebellum, whereas in this particular region where the spinal cord will give rise to formation of autonomic nerves, and this autonomic nerves are supplied to that particular smooth muscles, and they are involved in controlling the contraction and relaxation of this smooth muscles. Whereas in the previous case, in the contraction of voluntary muscles or skeletal muscles, we have seen the upper motor neuron and the lower motor neuron. Whereas here, the upper motor neuron is there, but it arises from the brainstem and cerebellum. And the lower motor neuron is nothing but the autonomic nerves which arise from the region of spinal cord. And we also have seen that there are some reflex actions. So reflex actions does not involve the brain, whereas for all the actions, the brain has to get an impulse. Based upon the sensory impulse, brain will send a motor impulse. Whereas in the case of reflex actions, brain is not involved in all the cases, and directly the sensory impulse which is connected with an connector neuron to the motor nerve will itself generate an impulse. Those are called as reflex actions. And there are three different types of reflexes. They are spinal reflexes, stretch reflexes, and autonomic reflexes. And the spinal reflexes, they have once again a 3 neuron system. So one is a sensory neuron, the connector neuron, and the lower motor neuron. So that is a spinal reflex. Whenever we touch any hot substance, immediately we will remove our finger. So this is an example of spinal reflex, where the sensory nerve, it carries information from the skin, and through the connector nerve, this is transmitting the impulse to the motor nerve that is applied to that particular region, to the finger. So I am touching like this. The sensory impulse is carried to the spinal cord, and from the spinal cord, by connector neuron, it sends an impulse to the lower motor neuron, which is supplied to this particular thing. So immediately I will remove. And in this process, the impulse, once it comes to the spinal cord, this will also be transmitted to the brain to know what kind of heat it is, why it is, and all. It will be processed by the brain. Whereas stretch reflexes, it consists of only two neurons, the lower sensory neuron and the lower motor neuron, and here it does not consist of a connector neuron. And this stretch reflexes are seen in those regions where the tendon of a muscle it crosses a joint. For example, the muscle of triceps has its tendon attached here. So whenever we move our elbow, we can see the muscle will be moving here. And this region where the tendon crosses a joint, in that particular region, the stretch receptors, when they are stimulated, this produces an reflex contraction of the muscle that is called as stretch reflex. We will see with an example in detail. And another example of reflex actions are autonomic reflexes, where such organs are not under voluntary control. Example, pupillary light reflex. So whenever a bright light or a torch light is put on your eye, you can see the pupil of your eye will contract, and this contraction is to prevent the light that is falling into the eye, so that bright light will damage our retina. So this contraction of pupil with bright light, it undergoes involuntarily, and this pupillary light reflex is an example of autonomic reflex actions. So you see in this diagram, this shows an stretch reflex. So here the tendon is of the thigh muscle, and this tendon it crosses the knee joint, and you can see the blue line indicates the sensory nerve which occurs due to stimulation of stretch receptors, and in the spinal cord there is an connector neuron. That connector neuron, it forms a part of three neuron system which is seen in spinal reflexes. Whereas for stretch reflexes, it does not involve connector neurons. You can see the sensory nerve, it is directly linked with the motor nerve, and you can see that point of stimulus where the arrow mark is shown. Whenever we tap that particular region with a knee hammer, we can see the stretch reflexes or stretch receptors are stimulated, which leads to stimulation of the upper motor neuron, lower motor neuron, and this once again leads to contraction of the muscle, and this leads to movement of our lower limb, or we can say the foot forward. This is an example of stretch reflex. Now let us discuss about another important aspect, that is action potential, or which is nothing but an impulse. We are talking about an impulse is being generated and the impulse is transmitted, and we should know what an impulse is. Generally, the cell membrane, it consists of different types of charges on either side of it. The outside of the cell will always be positive, whereas the inside of the cell will always be negative in charge, and this difference is called as voltage gradient against the membrane, or this is also called as cell membrane potential. In a resting state, the voltage that is present within the cell is negative, whereas in a active state, the voltage that is present within the cell will be positive. Generally, this positive nature or negative nature of the either sides of the membranes are controlled by various ions that are present in those regions. The major extracellular cation is sodium, Na+, whereas the major intracellular cation is potassium, which is having less electropositivity, and this is the reason why the voltage within the cell is negative. in a resting state. Whenever a stimulus will stimulate that particular nerve cell, this leads to opening of various channels which allows the movement of ions, and this ions channels allow the movement of ions from one side of the membrane to other side of the membrane based upon their potential or based upon their concentrations. We have seen the major extracellular cation is sodium, and this opening of sodium ion channel will lead to inflow of sodium because the positivity within the cell is less, whereas the concentration of potassium outside the cell is low. Opening of potassium ion channel leads to outflow of potassium ions. In this way, the movement of these ions inside and outside of the cell will generate an impulse. And once this membrane stability is disrupted, this leads to transmission of impulse by stimulating the adjacent ion channels. So this ion channel in one region will be activated, and this once again stimulates the ion channel which are present in the next. In this way, by activating and deactivating, the cells will transmit the impulse from one region to the another region, and this change in voltage before stimulation, after stimulation, or during stimulation can be represented by this diagram, which shows on the x-axis the duration, whereas on the y-axis the voltage. So in a resting state, the voltage that is present in the cell, it is minus 70 millivolt. You can see, and once the cell is stimulated, and this stimulation will lead to opening of sodium ion channels, and the sodium ion channels will come into the cell, and once the sodium ions come into the cell, this raises the membrane potential. So it raises the membrane potential to about plus 30, and this process of increase in voltage within the cell from minus 70 to plus 30 millivolt, it is called as depolarization. Once the cell is depolarized, immediately the sodium ion channels will be inactivated, followed by opening of potassium ion channels, which leads to outflow of potassium ions. And later the potassium ions once again comes back inwards, and the sodium ions moves outwards, and this is mediated by another ion channel pump called as sodium potassium antiporter, where the initial concentrations of these ions will be restored. So initially the concentration of sodium in the cell is low. Once it is stimulated, sodium comes in, the concentration will be increased. So this raises the membrane potential, and once again this will be balanced by sodium moves outwards and potassium comes inwards, and this is mediated through Na plus K plus antiporter, or it is also called as sodium potassium pump, and this once again comes back to a resting state, and this coming back to its resting state, it is called as hyperpolarization. Going to active state, it is called as depolarization, and coming back to resting state, it is called as hyperpolarization. One depolarization followed by hyperpolarization together is constituted as one action potential. With this, we have completed the topic central nervous system, under which we have studied about brain, spinal cord, the various regions of brain, functions of brain, various regions of spinal cord, functions of spinal cord.